Welcome to the show. My name is Reni. I'm just a pagan from the beautiful country of the Netherlands, and today we're talking about Snow White. Well, you might think, oh, I'm not interested in Snow White. I want to hear about Nordic paganism. I want to hear about Germanic lore. I want to talk about Odin, Thor, blood eagles, Viking stuff, you know? But I'm going to give you two reasons why you should be interested in Snow White. First reason is the tale of Snow White might actually be a lot older than you think. Most people think that it came from the brothers Grimm, who wrote down a lot of these famous fairy tales, including Snow White. But more and more evidence has come up in the last couple of years that the brothers Grimm were only the ones who wrote it down, that these tales are actually part of oral tradition which goes back a very, very long time. And when tales go back such a long time, it's interesting because it means they've captured the subconscious imagination of our ancestors for generations. Second reason is, in my humble opinion, there's some blood magic going on with this one. So come on, it's an ancient tale told by our ancestors around the campsite for generations and generations, and there's blood magic involved. If that doesn't sell it to you, I don't know what does. Okay, we all know the tale, of course. It starts with a king and a queen. The queen can't get a baby. She just can't. And one day she cuts her finger and she bleeds and she gets emotional. And as her blood falls on the white snow, she says, "I so wish I had a beautiful daughter. I'd wish her skin was as white as the snow. I'd wish her lips were as red as my blood that is now falling on the snow, and I'd wish her hair was as black as the night." And lo and behold, she got that child. She got exactly what she wanted. And we need to get back to this beginning at the end of the video because the symbolism here is really great. This, you know, I was reading this tale to my son because I have some kids, and if you have kids, you should read fairy tales to them. And when I read this opening part, I was like, got a bit angry, like they're doing blood magic on this, on the first few sentences. I had to tell my son, I had to tell him straight up. I said, listen, you're not doing blood magic, you're 5 years old, you're far too young, just use your spit like the rest of the family. But we'll get back to that intro. Point is, she got like, just waving hi to the neighbors, she got what she wanted. She got a beautiful daughter. So, but she died couple of years later. So the king remarried and she got like a stepmother, which of course didn't really like her, treated her like shit, and the stepmother was very, very vain. And she looked in the mirror every day, and she had this magical mirror, and she always said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And every day the mirror said, "It's you, my queen, you are the most pretty bitch I've ever seen." She was happy with that. As Snow White got older and got older, you know, she got more and more beautiful. So one day she asked the mirror that same question, and the mirror comes back and he says, "No, it's Snow White who's the fairest of them all." So then she gets mad. She gets real mad. She said, I got to take this bitch out because I don't want any competition, you know? It's only me who should be the most beautiful. So she talks to a hunter and she says, "You go in the woods, you take Snow White and you shoot her in the face." Right? So the hunter, he's a good hunter, says, "Sure thing, my queen." Goes in the forest, into a forest, maybe quite like this, and he tries to shoot her, but he can't. He has to look Snow White in the eye, and she's so pure and so beautiful that he just can't shoot something as beautiful. So he just says, "Snow White, just run into the forest. I'll tell the queen I've killed you because I can't do it." So goes back to the forest. Yeah, she's dead and all that shit. She's actually still in the forest. So a couple of days pass, and the queen goes to the mirror again. She says, "Who's the fairest of them all, mirror on the wall?" And she says, this mirror says, "It's still Snow White." So she goes, that girl's still alive. In the meanwhile, Snow White has found a home with these 7 dwarfs. And the queen finds her, disguises herself as an old woman, gives her a poison apple, which if she eats it, she will sleep for all eternity. Gives her the poison apple. Snow White falls asleep. The dwarves are heartbroken, and they just keep her in this glass casing because they still want to look at her because she's so beautiful. And in the end, she's of course kissed awake by the prince, and she is taken her rightful place on a throne because she is, you know, the daughter of a king. That's a quick synopsis. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. You all saw the movie, you all read the book, you know what it's like. Let's get into the meaning of this stuff. And there are several points of view to consider. There's, first of all, there's Snow White's point of view, and there's the evil stepmother, the queen's point of view, which is very interesting. Now, when you first look at it, it kind of looks like this is a classic tale of good versus evil, of yin and yang constantly moving and keeping each other in balance. You know, the evil tries to kill the good, but the good gets reborn and stuff like that. And that's true. That's also in there. But if you go deeper, I don't mean that in a sexual way, I just deeper, you start to find a lot more. You really do. Because Snow White is indeed a representation of pureness and beauty, but she is not conscious of how beautiful she is, and she's not conscious of how terrible the world is. If you look at this from Snow White's point of view, it's kind of like a coming-of-age story of just a naive young girl who finds out the world is wicked. And as she begins to find out how wicked the world is, she finds herself surrounded by 7 dwarfs. Which, if you want to put a Christian spin on it, could represent the 7 deadly sins. Which, if you go by them, they kind of could. But I believe that these 7 dwarfs, the reason that they're dwarfs is that they're not human. There are 7 behaviors that if you give yourself to those behaviors, you dwell in lower energies and you are no longer human. That's why I depicted as dwarfs. And it's also, these dwarfs only appear in the tale after the stepmother already tried to kill her. That it's her story of coming of age. She was very naive, and when the moment comes when she's no longer naive, guess what happens? She has these terrible behaviors around her which tempt her. There's also another way to look at this for the people who are into astrology in my channel. Every dwarf could represent a planet. I've written that down actually. Dark could be Jupiter, Dopey could be Mercurius, Grumpy could be Mars, Mars planet of war, Sneezy could be Saturn, Happy could relate to the Sun, Bashful could relate to Venus, and Sleepy could relate to the Moon. That doesn't totally hold up because, well, there are 8 planets and these are 7, but then Snow White could be the Earth, because the Earth is all about, you know, development, magic and coming of age. So, but then we still miss one planet because this one incorporates the Moon. So it doesn't totally hold up. But when you're into astrology and you compare like the dwarfs to the planets, it's a fun thing to do. At least for me. Those are my hobbies. So it's a coming of age story, but the coming of age story ends with love's true kiss. Meaning that if you truly want to be an adult, what you need to do is you need to go past all those sins, all those behaviors which will only lead you to lower energies. I mean, if you were able to like craft modern archetypes of the 7 dwarfs, you know, there would be Stony, the one who smokes weed too much, Porny, the one who watches porn too much, video gamey, the one who plays video games too much, you know, the things that keep you in lower energies. But if you move past all that, or let's say you don't, first you don't, what happens is you come into a sleep. You're not dead, but you're not really alive. And let's be easy, if you just like watch porn and play video games all day, you know, it's kind of like living but not really being alive. But at the end of the story, Snow White wakes up in her rightful place on Earth. How? By the kiss of love, meaning that it is true love and true passion that awakens the heart and truly makes you an adult. That's a good story, right? End of video. Not quite. There's more. You can look at it from the Queen's perspective. The Queen lives in a castle, which could represent a sheltered life. By the way, you always think about the Queen as like the bad guy in the story, or the bad one. I sometimes thought it was the mirror, because like if that mirror could have just kept his mouth shut, you know, the Queen wouldn't have been as pissed. But it's the Queen, and she lives this luxurious life of comfort, and she becomes engulfed with pride and rage if she sees something in the mirror that she doesn't like. The mirror tells her something that she doesn't like. Aren't we all like that? Isn't it very hard to look in the mirror and not get all those emotions when you see something you don't like? The Queen is a metaphor for her own tendencies to not want to deal with reality of looking in the mirror. But in a broader sense, the Queen also represents us, and the mirror also represents social media. Yes, I think Snow White is actually a metaphor for social media, because what happens in social media, we follow the people we like, we talk to the people we like, and what is increasingly happening in Western civilization is everybody is like kind of stuck in their own echo chamber. Like if you're very left-leaning political, you only have left-leaning people, and if you're right-leaning political, you only have right-leaning people, and you only basically listen to the echo of your own voice. And when something breaks through that echo, people get really pissed. I don't know if you ever tried it. I'm getting visitors by a little dog here. Hey fella. Hi. Probably can't see it on camera, but now I'm like, there are lots of dogs here. Kom. Ga naar je baasje. Kom. What was I saying? Social media. Like, have you ever tried this? Have you ever gone on a Tesla forum board, and when somebody posts something really good, like, oh, you know, I'm so glad I'm saving the environment with my Tesla, and I really feel that this is the way forward. Have you ever tried just writing a comment and said, yeah, well, it's great that you feel that way, but, you know, I'm sorry, your power still comes from coal. And so, you know, maybe in the future, but at this moment it isn't so good for the environment. It would be better if you just kept your old shitty car than just had this car specifically made for you, because that's bad for the environment. Now, for a lot of you that will be a very divisive comment, but for me it's like, I don't mean to be an asshole, but those are the facts. It may change in the future, but at this moment those are still the facts. Well, if you type that in the Tesla, people will go fucking bonkers on your shit. They will turn into the evil stepmother of Snow White, and they will have a hunter kill you. And if that doesn't work, they'll try a poison fucking apple. I'm not saying it's people on the left, people on the right. It's both spectrums. You know, people always forget, like left ring, right ring, it's the same fucking bird, people. So the Queen, that's you and me. The mirror, that's social media. Don't be afraid to have your illusions shattered. And when you get mad when somebody disagrees with you online, just think of that old Queen. You don't want to turn into her. Bitter and jealous. Okay? Thank you for joining me on this journey. I'll see you all next week. Ga met de goden. Oh, I forgot one more thing. I wanted to come back to the beginning. You know, when the old Queen lost her blood in the snow. That actually could have been a blood magic ritual. So meaning that Snow White came forth out of a blood magic ritual, and that's the reason why she died. Because a lot of people do magic and they don't understand magic, and I'm not saying like I'm the authority when it comes to magic, but I know that when you ask for something, it can be dangerous, because you can get what you want basically, but you don't know what it's going to cost you, because there's no glitz and it's there. It's always going to cost you something. You can do a ceremony and you can say like, I would like $1 million, and you can get the $1 million. But it can be that you're like, goedemiddag, get hit by a truck, and the settlement that you eventually gonna get from the drunk driver is gonna be $1 million. So then you're stuck in a wheelchair, you can't work, you can't do anything, you're a goddamn cripple, but you have got $1 million. So for the love of the gods, please be careful what you ask for when you do these magic ceremonies. Okay. And because she didn't understand the price of magic, and she didn't understand the price of specifically blood magic, Snow White is incredibly naive, because it's that part of her that just lives on. That's what I wanted to add. Now I want to say goodbye. Ga met de goden. Tot volgende week.